Welcome. Thanks very much for attending tonight. And so as Gavin has mentioned there, I'm going to do a virtual tour of Belfast cemeteries. And so I'll be calling it, out of the 26 counties, I'll be calling it 22 of the counties. So we focused on the four of the Belfast cemeteries. They are City Cemetery, Dundonald, Roselawn and Knockbreda. So on this screen here, you'll see a number of the cemeteries a number of the headstones rather, that I'll talk about. So one on the left is at Roselawn. That's in memory of Elizabeth Reid. So that's the Donegal one. The middle one then is the County Tipperary one. And then the one to the right of the screen, the Pint of Guinness, is at Roselawn. It's nothing to do with any of the counties, but it is St. Patrick's Day, so I thought I would mention the Pint of Guinness. So that's the headstone there, the Doyle headstone. And you can see there at the bottom it says, "Good night and joy be with you all," which is the parting glass from the Irish traditional song. So it's quite a quirky grave, and there's a close-up of the Pint of Guinness. So I'm going to have a quiz as well. Just for one quiz question, and the quiz question is about a county in Ireland. It is what is the most landlocked county in Ireland? So that's the question. I'll give the answer at the end. If people wanted to message in or whatever and see what they think is the answer. But what's the most landlocked county in Ireland? In other words, the only county that doesn't border onto a county that borders onto the sea. So the first one that I'm going to look at is County Carlow. This is in Dundonald Cemetery. And as you'll see on the headstone, it's in memory of Deborah Tyndall, nee Matthews, born at Carlow, died at Belfast, 21st of May, 1914, full of years. Erected by her brother John, the best of sisters, also her dear brother John Matthews, born at Carlow, died at Belfast, 21st of April, 1917, aged 83. Deborah was full of years. She lived until she was 70, and she was living at, her and John were both living at 18 Camden Street when he died. So that's Carlow. The next one's Cavan. This is in the City Cemetery, Belfast City Cemetery. And amongst the text on the headstone there, it says Lucy Storey died 9th of October 1877, aged 11 years, and whose remains are interred in Kilmore in Cavan. Lucy's probably buried in the grounds in the cemetery at the graveyard at Kilmore Cathedral, and also buried in the plot then are William Storey, who was 16 years and 10 months when he died in 1885. James, who died in 1885 as well, aged 14 and a half. And then they're both living at Percy Street in Belfast. And also buried in that grave, but not commemorated in the headstone, are two children of the Thompson family. They died aged 2 days old, and a stillborn male born in 1916. So that's County Cavan, the Stories, and I am related. My granny was a Storey from Cavan, and this is my granny's mum and dad's grave at Knockbreda Cemetery, and my great granddad was called Bobby Storey, of course, not that Bobby Storey, but I discovered this grave quite recently, and as you can see, I've tidied it up. So that's the kind of the before and the after. So that's my folks in Knockbreda Cemetery in County Cavan originally. Next one's County Clare. This is in the City Cemetery. And at the base of the headstone, it commemorates Richard Massey Stoddard of Gortine, Fort William Park. He was a colonel in the Clare Artillery, died 10th of April 1917. He if you look up his records, he was actually living in 57 Somerton Road when he died, but that borders on the Fort William Park. So Fort William Park was very much a des res, and it continues to be. So even though he's living on the corner of Fort William Park and Somerton Road, he put Fort William Park on his headstone. Next one then is County Cork, and this is not Breda. This is for any Titanorachs. So there's a number of Titanorachs like myself viewing tonight, Maureen and Mark. So this is Robert Bennett, late of Queenstown. Queenstown, of course, now is Cove, and Robert Bennett died on the 31st of January 1928. So obviously after the Titanic left Southampton, 10th of April 1912, it sailed to Cherbourg in France, and then Queenstown before heading west to New York. So that's County Cork. Next we're in Donegal, and this is the one I mentioned earlier. This is in Roselawn. This commemorates Liz Reid. She died at quite young, aged only 48. And I just like this headstone. It says, missed like a heartbeat in life, loved like a summer in Donegal. So that was perhaps the Reids maybe had a house up in Donegal. So that's a reference to Donegal. There are many references to Donegal in different Belfast cemeteries, particularly in Belfast City Cemetery. And Liz Reid was living at 54 Marlborough Park Central when she died, aged only 48 on the 21st of March 2008. So next one, we're into my favourite Irish county. It's County Galway. This is Knockbreda Cemetery, and this commemorates Stephen Sharp of Ballinsloe in County Galway. Died 9th of October 1923, aged 59 years. For the last 300 years, the Ballinsloe Horse Fair is held annually in October, and it's reputedly the oldest horse fair in Europe, and the associated festival attracts up to 80,000 visitors every year. That's County Galway. Next one then is County Kerry, and this is in the Dundonald Cemetery. And the first person commemorated in this headstone is in loving memory of our dear son, John Herbert Evans, RIC, Royal Irish Constabulary, killed at Killorglin, County Kerry, 31st of October 1920, aged 22 years. Constable Evans was killed along with 24-year-old Constable Albert F. Casely from Kent, and they were shot dead while returning from leave along with 2 other colleagues. They were missing at Hillville in Killorglin, County Kerry. Buried in the grave are a number is John's brother. Also buried in the grave is John's brother, Richard Taylor Evans, and he died aged only 38 in 1938. Killorglin sits in the Ring of Kerry, the Wild Atlantic Way. If you haven't been done the Wild Atlantic Way, well worth doing. And the Killorglin is best known perhaps for the annual Puck Fair Festival. It takes place over several days in August and starts with the crowning and parading of a king wild goat. Of course, being from East Belfast, we have quite a few goats running around this neck of the woods as well. So the next one then is Leitrim, and there's actually 2 references to Southern Ireland here. The McManuses, John George McManus was born in Mohill, County Leitrim, and then Louisa Isabel, known as Lou Bell McManus, she was from Arva in County Cavan. So another reference to County Cavan. So this is George and Lou Bell on their wedding day, and that is in the background is St Donald's Church at Bloomfield there, where my mum and dad go to church. And then that's the 2 of them, Lou Bell and Johnny, as he was known in later life. They're the relations of my a friend of mine, Stuart McCracken. Arva in County Cavan, it means the division or place of slaughter. It's situated in the centre of the Drumlin Belt in the counties on the border of the counties of Longford and Leitrim. And the most notable Former residents of Arva include William H. Blakely, who emigrated to America in 1905, and he became a pioneer of aviation and was the first man to loop the loop. Also from Arva was Siva Keynes Warren, a member of the boy band The Wanted. I'm not going to sing any Wanted songs. So that's delightful. So that's Cavan and Leitrim. The next one then is Limerick. And this one commemorates, as you'll see, William Gorman, Methodist minister, born in Limerick, June 26, 1829. I've put there, but it's 3. Died in Belfast, December 22nd, 1906. He lived at Marrock in Osborne Park in Belfast when he died in 1906. His father was a master mariner and was involved in a horrendous shipwreck in 1835, which led to survivors having to cast lots as to see whose life would be sacrificed to feed the others. So behind every headstone, there's always a story to be told, but that one behind William Gorman's is particularly gruesome story. Irving Gorman's wife, Mary, was living at 25 Darramore Street when she died Darramore Park, when she died at 4 Eileen Gardens, 15th of July, 1936, aged 94. So the next one then is County Longford. This is in Dundonald Cemetery, and you might be able to see there, it's in loving memory of the Reverend W. Devonish, BA, who entered his rest 8th of January 1913, aged 72 years, late rector of Abbey Lara and Drum at Lomond in County Longford. The Church of Ireland Church isn't there anymore. So they were living, Reverend Devonish was living at Claremont, 30 Cypress Avenue when he died 8th of January 1913, as it says. And his wife, Christian Rebecca Devonish, was living at 11 Wandsworth Gardens when she died on Christmas Day, 1928, aged 24. Next one then is a double puncture as such. It's got Counties Mayo and Monaghan in it. This is in the City Cemetery. And it's in loving memory, erected in loving memory of my dear husband, the Reverend Thomas Armstrong, founder minister for 22 years at Presbyterian Church in Ballina. Afterwards for County Mayo. Afterwards for 28 years superintendent of Connaught Schools and Orphans. Born in Monaghan, 6th of March 1822, died in Belfast 23rd of December. When all the best people have their birthday since my dad's birthday, 1898. The memory of the just is blessed. So they were living in, the Reverend Armstrong was living at Hazelville, which is on Newton Arch Road, just above the Hollywood Arches when he died, age 75. The next one then is Meath, County Meath, and this is in Knockbreda Cemetery. And the side panel, that's the Scammell grave. On a side panel, it commemorates Arthur McConnell, died 10th of June 1915, buried at Kells, County Meath. So Kells is best known as the site of Kells Abbey, from which the Book of Kells takes its name. And the late Hollywood actor or actress, actor Maureen O'Hara is connected to Kells, as her father was from Kells, although Maureen grew up in Dublin. Maureen O'Hara visited Kells on the 26th of May 2012 to receive the freedom of the town and to unveil a statue in her honour. So also commemorated on the side panel here, and I have to thank my learned friend Nigel Henderson for giving me information about this. Commemorated on the side panel then is Staff Sergeant Arthur Francis Scammell. He was serving with the Royal Army Ordnance Corps. He died in active service 15th of July 1941, aged 30, and is buried in Damascus Commonwealth War Cemetery in Syria. He's born in Canterbury, and his parents were living at Queensbury Park when Arthur died. Arthur was survived by his wife Minnie, who lived Hardcastle Street in Belfast, and Francis had served in the Boer War with the 16th Lancers in the Great War with the North Irish Horse. So say that's in Knockbreda Cemetery. If you haven't been in Knockbreda Cemetery, well worth checking out. Now we're over to Dundonald Cemetery. This is County Offaly, or Kings County, as is recorded on the just above the penultimate line there on the headstone. And this is to the memory of Frances Helen Millicent Christie, 1876 to 1953, daughter of Major Sir Francis Millington Synge, 6th Baronet, Singfield, Burr, Kings County, and wife of Archibald Christie. So it's not exactly the type of headstone I expected to see in the Dundonald Cemetery. And this photograph is Singfield. You can see it's in a dilapidated state these days. When Frances Christie died on the 22nd of March 1953, aged 77, at City Hospital, she was living at 15 Upper Crescent in Belfast. So this is 15 Upper Crescent these days, middle unit in this photograph. The next one then is Roscommon. This is back to Knockbreda Cemetery, and you'll see here it's sacred to the memory of Mary Clarissa Graham, formerly of Strokestown, County Roscommon, dearly beloved wife of Isaac Graham, died 13th of October 1932. And you can see that's a Celtic cross. So if you have anything to know, if you want anything to know about Celtic crosses, Mark Docherty, who's on this call, is the go-to man for Celtic crosses. And on the side panel, they have their son David, who died the following year after his mother died in Dublin, 1933. Strokestown is best known for it's got the second widest street in Ireland. That's a fascinating fact to keep you up at night. While it's well known for Strokestown Park House, which is an 18th century mansion with the longest herbaceous border in Ireland. Another stunner of a fascinating fact, I don't think. So back over to the west coast now for the next one, County Sligo, and still in Knockbreda Cemetery. And you'll see about the 6th line down commemorates our dear father Robert Slater, died 17th of November 1898, interred at St. John's in Sligo. This is St. John's in Sligo here. It's officially known as St. John the Baptist Cathedral. It's one of 2 Church of Ireland cathedral churches in the diocese of Kilmore, Elphin, and Ardagh. Church was built as St. John's Church in the mid-18th century to the design of the architect Richard Castles, who adopted a basilica pattern from Roman architecture. Next one then is this one. The big Celtic cross is the County Tipperary entry. And if you look to the left, you'll see another headstone, which I'll talk about shortly. They're both McIlwains. So this is that panel that sits there below the Celtic cross, and it commemorates here now at the body of William McIlwain, DD, Doctor of Divinity, who died 12th of August 1885, aged 78 years, ex-scholar, Trinity College and Canon of St. Patrick's Cathedral, Dublin, ordained in the Baltay in the Diocese of Derry in February 1883, removed to Loch Jordan, which is in County Tipperary, in June 1834, came to Belfast in December 1835 as curate to the Reverend Bland, where he remained as incumbent of St. George's and perpetual curate of Upper Falls, where he was rector from 1836 until 1880. He died at his residence here, which is at 20 Mount Charles. You can see they're doing a bit of work on it, but for the eagle-eyed people, if you look to the left, you can see a blue plaque there, and that's actually the blue plaque to John Hewitt. So he would have been he lived in the house next door to where John Hewitt lived, not at the same time. Then his brother is buried next door, as tried to show there earlier. This is John H. McElwain, and he was a shipbuilder, and he was in partnership with this man, the top left, the guy with the beard, and that's Richard Lewis, and his son there, the man with the moustache in the front row, is Albert Lewis, and the two children on his knee are Albert's children. So that's Warney and Clive Staples Lewis, C.S. Lewis, known as Jack. So his granda, C.S. Lewis's granda, was in partnership, was Richard Lewis, and he was in partnership with John H. McElwain. They were shipbuilders, and in 1888 they built, sorry, that's Richard Lewis's headstone at Belfast City Cemetery below there. In 1888, McElwain and Lewis built this ship, and it's called SS Titanic. So built by Lewis and McElwain in 1888. So that links C.S. Lewis to the Titanic, but not the Titanic that a lot of people know about. This one far predated and far outlived the more well-known Titanic. That's County Tipperary. Next one is Waterford, and this is in Roselawn Cemetery, and you can see there it says, "Lord, grant eternal rest to the soul of Dennis Noonan, a very dear, loving and kind husband and father, born Campfair in County Waterford, 21st of February 1921, died Belfast, 8th of February 2007, rest in peace." Campfair is a neighbourhood in Waterford. It's a 75-minute drive to Waterford, but it's less than an hour to Cork, so it's actually closer to Cork than Waterford town. So that's in Roselawn. And then the next one is over to the City Cemetery again, and that is, you'll see at the bottom there, Thomas Lestrange, eldest son of Tyranio Francis Lestrange from County Westmeath, born 17th of January 1822, died 22nd of January 1910. There weren't too many, I don't think there's too many Tyrannios running about Belfast back in those days. I couldn't see people going, "Tyranio, your dinner's ready." But that was Tyranio Lestrange. They lived at 7 Street down the city centre, near where the Washington Bar used to be. So that is County Westmeath. Only two more to go. Wexford. This is the entry for Wexford. And this fine grave at the City Cemetery is one of a number of listed graves in Belfast City Cemetery. Again, if you haven't been, do go up there, and Dara or myself will show you around. And so this fine headstone is one of the listed graves up there, and it commemorates there's three panels on it, as you can see. This is the middle one, and this commemorates Margaretta Ogilvie Ferris Lynn, wife of Henry Johnson Lynn of Fethard, County Wexford, who died 10th of April 1879, aged 72 years, and she was living at 5 Crumlin Terrace. So she had two quite famous sons. The most famous one is this man, William Henry Lynn, RHA, architect, and he was born 27th of December 1829. He died on the 12th of September 1913. This is an architect. He was living at he was in the Belfast, funny enough. He was in the 250 Antrim Road in Belfast when he died. And this is one of his more famous productions. This is the Albert Memorial Clock in High Street. And then Carlisle Memorial Church, Carlisle Circus, an old Methodist church. Now it's been made watertight, so there's events take place there on occasions. He also built this, my favourite municipal building in Belfast. It's the Belfast Harbour Office. Also the extension, the old library at Queen's College. This was the Queen's Library when I went there many moons ago. And he also built this building, the Central Library, and then also the bank buildings, until recently Primark building. So they had the fire there, so hopefully it'll open, renovated soon. So they're all Lynn's, William Lynn's productions. But also commemorated on this grave is his brother, Margaret's eldest son, Samuel, and he was a sculptor, as you can see there on his headstone. He died 5th of April 1876, aged 41 years. And he was a sculptor, and he's best known perhaps for this piece of work. So that's his brother did the clock tower, designed the clock tower, and Robert himself designed the sculpture of Prince Albert himself. So that's a photograph of the of Samuel Lynn's work. The last county that I'm going to call that then is County Wicklow. This is back in the city cemetery. This commemorates the panel to the in the middle there. Commemorates Cecilia C. Hebenstall of Glendara, Newton Mount Kennedy, widow of Reverend Lambert Hebenstall of Altadore, County Wicklow, died 21st of March 1904, aged 98. Altadore was not a bad wee place. This is it here. It's now a hotel. It's Altadore Castle. And the Emmett family have owned the castle since 1945. And they descend from the United Irishman Thomas Addis Emmett, elder brother of Robert Emmett. And Altadore Castle contains a small Robert Emmett museum to this day. Also commemorated on the side panel back there, you can see to your left, is this man, Barclay. There's a photograph of it, Barclay Dean Wise, and he died May 5th, 1909, aged 55 years. This Barclay Dean Wise here in the middle. I think that's at Whitehead, possibly. And he was chief engineer for the Belfast County Down Railway and chief engineer for the Northern Counties Railway, and was responsible for building the majority of the stations on that line. There's a few of the things that he was responsible for, that Barclay Dean Wise was responsible for. He was responsible for the Gobbins, so obviously rather recently renovated and reopened, but it was Barclay Dean Wise that designed the Gobbins originally. And then, as I mentioned earlier, he was also did a lot of the stations along the railways. This is a particularly scenic station in Whitehead. And then this is in Portrush. People might recognise it as the old Portrush railway station. It's now an original factory shop, but it is also the first listed building in Northern Ireland. Barclay Dean Wise he died in Portrush, so it's appropriate to finish talking about him, Portrush. So, sorry, with a reference to the Portrush railway station. So yes, your suffering is about to end, apart from the quiz question. The quiz question was, just to remind you, which is the most landlocked county in Ireland? In other words, a county that doesn't border onto the sea. So I haven't mentioned the county today. The only other three counties that I haven't mentioned are Kildare, Kilkenny, and Louth. But there's another one which is the most landlocked county in Ireland. So I'm going to see if anybody's got the answer in the chat. So thanks very much for listening. Oh, that's the answer. Sorry. It'd be remiss of me not to aimlessly plug my books. This is the next one coming out. This is 2020, due out last year, obviously, hopefully out within the next month. 20 different graves in each of 20 different cemeteries. I also have books previously about City Cemetery and about Dundonald Cemetery. Available from any disreputable bookshops or from the back of my car. So that's all, folks. Thanks very much for listening.